I want to talk about transgender issues. Should trans women be included in feminist conversations? How about in women's spaces?
I don't know. I thought feminists were always screaming about smashing the patriarchy. The patriarchy is made of men. So if you let men who pretend that they're women into feminist conversations and in women's spaces, aren't you letting the patriarchy smash you? You're letting men deceive you by saying they're women, and you're letting these deceptive men influence your conversations and take over your spaces. Aren't leftists always complaining about colonization? Isn't this a form of colonization, where these deceptive men encroach in women's spaces? How come you're not mad about this kind of colonization? The incoherence and nonsense is very strong with these feminists and leftists in general.
Yes, they're women. What's the question?
Pearl,
Trans women are women.
Here we have Mindy saying the obligatory leftist propaganda line, trans women are women, which undermines the entire concept of feminism. Not that I actually care. If feminism was really about women's rights, it would be exclusive to women. Men who pretend to be women are not women. Why is this so hard to understand? Apples that pretend to be oranges are still apples. Men who pretend to be women are still men. Do you know what deception is? These men are deceiving you because they want to. They know they will be a protected class simply by saying they're women. Why don't you get that? These men are manipulating you into giving them exactly what they want, and you're playing right into their hands. If you want to complain about misogyny, here's some misogyny right here. A man is deceiving you into thinking that you have to answer to his ideology and do what he wants at the expense of yourself as a woman. If a man says he's a woman, then demands that he receive women's rights when he already has rights, then he's taking away the focus from women's rights. Congratulations on fighting for feminism so ineffectively, Mindy. You're surrendering feminism to the trans ideology, and you just lost feminism. If feminism is going to die, this is one of the ways how it dies. At the hands of stupid feminists who don't even know what they're doing.
So I want to come at this from the position of an athlete.
Oh, Jesus.
When Eli says, "Oh, Jesus," after Pearl is just stating her opinion and experience, being an athlete is just condescending and rude. I thought the left held lived experiences up on a pedestal, so why is Eli denying Pearl's lived experience of being an athlete?
So I play semi-pro basketball, semi-pro volleyball. So when it comes to like athletic spaces, I don't think that trans women should be allowed into athletic spaces because I don't think it's a fair. I think as female athletes, we work so incredibly hard for the little opportunity there is in women's sports.
Would this be a barrier for you?
There's no barrier. There's less opportunity in some industries.
That's what a barrier is.
There's less. It's not. No. It's based on the market.
Means.
Okay.
Hold on, guys.
Okay. So again, we work very hard for the little opportunity there is in the space because we're not as entertaining as the men. Sorry, we're just not. And so it's like you're gonna take the little opportunity that we're given. And the problem is like, we can't compete. We can't. Like, I'm 6 foot. If I go up against a 6 foot guy and I play basketball with him, he's gonna body me.
And what happens if I go up against you?
Even if I have years more of training. And so it's like you're taking away the little opportunity that we're given and we all work so hard for, and you're just giving it back to biological guys. It's like this will be the end of women's sports.
Have you tried confidence?
Eli, hold on, Minnie.
Sorry,
Eli.
confidence can't make me bench what a guy benches.
I don't
Confidence can't make me 6'7".
I feel like I'm watching a bunch of middle schoolers picking on one of the students in the lunchroom. Have you tried confidence? Such condescension just because you don't agree with Pearl. Is that how confidence works? Can confidence make a person grow body parts, Mindy? Have you tried that? If not, how is confidence going to make Pearl able to compete with a very tall man playing volleyball against her? If he can jump higher than Pearl simply because of physics, no amount of Pearl thinking I can do this will make her jump higher than him because his legs are longer and he has more muscle mass in his legs.
Hostile. She's sharing her
And confidence
experience
can't make
in
me
a specific
successful. No, she's
field.
sharing
And I'd have to
misogyny.
go.
No, she's
yeah.
not. She's a woman who's had an
it's always-
experience.
it's always- it's always
One at a
the other
time.
You guys
We
are
let
so
Pearl
obsessed with your
finish.
own experiences and your own existence, and yet when a woman is sitting here telling you, I feel as though this is unfair and this is compromising and this situation is not helping women, you guys are like, meh, meh, meh. But when you're like, I'm a black person that did this, 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 and this, then it's valid and fair and viable.
Eli, I want to give you the chance to respond.
So this is basically a joke of a talking point. Everyone has biological advantages in sports. How tall are you?
5'11" and a half. I'm tall.
I'm 5'8". I am a trans woman. You would crush me. You would absolutely crush
Bone
me.
density, wrist strength,
Yeah.
muscle density, you can't switch those.
Yeah, exactly. You would crush me.
This is that tactic leftists use when they bring up an exception in an attempt to prove the standard is wrong. This is incorrect because statistics say that there is always a standard deviation. There is always a standard, and then there's always something that deviates from that standard. That's just a fact, that the standard still remains. Leftists are very exclusive, despite all their talk of inclusivity. Leftists want to exclude standard men and women from being talked about as normal because what they really want is for trans and queer people to become the standard, while men and women fall to the sides and become marginalized exceptions. That's the real reason why the left is so mad at the world, because they cannot change the natural order no matter how much they scream and whine about it.
But also, Eli, you would never play at the level that Pearl plays because you would never get there.
So let me give you a few more examples here, too. So Michael Phelps produced more lactic acid in his body, which caused him to swim better than any of his competitors. This was widely celebrated, and nobody contested it. Now, this is a performance-enhancing hormone. So we all have different bodies. And now I'm not saying that trans women who aren't on hormones should participate, but there are, every major medical and every major sports organization agrees that trans women who have been on hormones for between 1 and 3 years, depending on the organization, have the same competitive abilities.
Yes, but Michael Phelps didn't try to play in the women's division of swimming. Within the men's division, obviously everyone's body is different. Within the women's division, obviously everyone's body is different. The left will use this as a, see, then it doesn't matter if men and women play together because everyone's body is different anyway. Yes, there are some men who are faster than other men, but if you put the slowest man against the fastest woman, the man still has a higher chance of beating her because the standards of comparison between men and women are not on equal ground in the first place. Even within men's divisions of sports, we separate them so they can compete fairly against each other. In boxing, there's weight classes because smaller men fighting against bigger men isn't fair, even though they're all men. If we separate that, why wouldn't we also separate men and women? It makes sense to have people of similar skill level compete against each other because it's fair. The left loves to talk about things being fair, but in this case, they throw fairness out the window. They don't care. They don't care that a man's hand is bigger on average than a woman's hand, so him shoving a woman in an MME fight would give him an advantage, causing an unfair playing ground.
The study that you're referencing had like 7 people participated.
That's misinformation, by the way. I'm
That is
referencing several different studies. I'm a trans woman and a researcher.
The only thing that the word misinformation means is information the left doesn't like, or information that goes against the left's narrative. If someone accuses you of misinformation, don't worry that you might be wrong. They're just saying they don't like the information that you're saying. It doesn't mean that you're wrong. It means your information is inconvenient to them. The left will always say there is misinformation in studies that don't push the leftist narrative because they are tyrants and they think the only correct information is whatever they think.
It's getting personal. I don't want it to be personal.
A lot of us live in this space where we're told that our opinions don't count because they're not the right kind of opinions, and we're constantly shouted over and talked over regardless of what we look like because there's one group in society that basically takes precedence, and it's frustrating. So yeah, of course, it's frustrating because when we try to talk about it, we get shouted down, we get told to be quiet, we get spoken down too as well. So there's hostility there for plenty of women.
Let's try to make this an opportunity to speak.
You're literally a white woman from Australia. You live in a bubble and you're pissed that voices that have been silenced forever finally can be heard.
Welcome to the witch/demon cackling portion of the Vice panel. If you watch my reaction to the Asian Vice panel, this portion was also included in that video. A leftist always cackles over a conservative talking in an attempt to shut them up. Do you remember earlier when I told you to remember when Yelda said,
I think that what we're forgetting is a very important detail, which is just human respect and dignity.
This is why I wanted you to remember that. Yelda's reaction to Sydney expressing her opinion that conservatives constantly get talked down to, shouted over, and laughed at is proven here exactly by Yelda's actions. She's laughing over Sydney as if it's so ridiculous that Sydney would have an opinion about anything. Then makes a racist comment saying Sydney is white, so she just has to shut the fuck up. That's basically what Yelda said in not so many words. Does that look like dignity and respect to you? It seems that Yelda has forgotten about the very things she said everyone else forgot about.
Why they have the voice, because they speak up.
Okay, we're having a conversation about transgender women participating in sports, and I wanted to allow more people to participate. Jordan, I wanted to hear from you.
So I am not a professional athlete. The closest thing I have ever done to anything athletic was I used to do competitive show choir when I was younger. And I don't feel really qualified to make carte blanche statements about whether or not trans women should compete in every kind of sport. And I understand that that is that's a hard pill to swallow. And for me, my first inclination is to approach everything through a lens of inclusivity. But at the same time, I also can't speak accurately to every kind of sport and the different things that go into it. So I really think in these instances, the decisions are best left up to the professional governing bodies that dictate these particular sports.
I feel a little bad for Jordan because I think Jordan is trying to be nice. But I think Jordan has fallen into a leftist trap where the leftists gaslight you into thinking that you were being nice by not having an opinion. The leftists always tell people if you're not an expert in something, your opinion doesn't matter. That is a lie, and I think that Jordan has bought into it, however innocently it may have happened. I think Jordan can have an opinion about everything because Jordan is a person, and Jordan has thoughts. That fact alone is enough to qualify someone to have an opinion. It doesn't mean your opinion is right or wrong, but you are allowed to have one and express it. Do you remember earlier when I told you to remember when Yelda said,
I think that what we're forgetting is a very important detail, which is just human respect and dignity. I just feel in places, as an ally, in places where there's no understanding, we can just respect and not really, our opinions don't fucking matter.
Here we go again with Yelda talking about respect when she has no fucking idea what respect means. She didn't respect Sydney earlier. Now she's saying no one's opinions fucking matter. You're on a panel of women, Yelda. Who's being misogynistic now? It's no wonder I find leftists to be very stupid. This line of thinking that Yelda's saying, where if we don't understand something, we should just leave it alone, is exactly why leftists are stupid. How do you learn things? You learn things by asking questions about things you don't understand.
Eli, I saw you nodding your head over there.
Several times. This is more than about sports. This is about free and equal participation for transgender people in social life. And the right sees this as a socially acceptable way to begin to remove trans people from different engagements in our society. So it does just start with sports or bathrooms or locker rooms, something that they find is more acceptable. And then at this point, they started to move into education, getting trans teachers fired, banning trans books. This is a route that is very effective because it's seen as more acceptable. But it's also overlooking a lot of major details. Like, I mean, do y'all know how many trans women have won national titles?
One too many.
One. It's Leah Thomas is the only one.
One too many.
If
one
women,
too many? In places, as an ally, in places where there's no understanding, we can just respect and not really, like, our opinions don't fucking matter.
only one.
One too many.
If
one
women,
too many?
Yelda, you can't ask questions. You don't understand what Pearl means by one too many, but that's too bad for you. Just respect Pearl. Just respect what Pearl said. You can't ask Pearl what she means by that. Also, Pearl said that because more than one person has won, and Eli is lying.
if women's sports were actually going to end in some way, I mean, it's just not happening. Wouldn't you think there would be more trans women in sports when the majority of states do allow trans women full participation? International titles, 0. No global titles have ever been won by a trans woman.
I found a list of 20 trans women who have won national or international competitions or championships in all kinds of sports. Their names are going to go scrolling by on the screen. If you care to read them, you can pause the video, but I'm not going to be listing all of these off. We don't have time for that. Also, remember that these are all men who have changed their names to female names so they could invade female sports with their patriarchy and take the women's trophies away from them. Remember that. Shall I go on, or have I made my point? Don't believe the leftist lies about this topic.
I want to
Based
move
on
on
our
to a different
background.
topic. I want to talk about Me Too and sort of this social movement that we're living through right now. What is the state of feminism sort of in this post-Me Too era?
We're in post Me Too.
All right.
Tell me.
Sorry, I got distracted by the Me Too part. So I was like, we're in post Me Too? Wow, like, no one's getting like sexually harassed anymore. Like, oof.
We did it, guys. We solved the
Right?
problem.
I want that world. No, I think obviously the state of feminism is very much reflected right in this room. But Me Too for me, right, in a particular context, means something for different people. It's a different experience for different people.
Here we go again with, this means different things for different people. What the fuck does Me Too actually mean then? I thought Me Too was reserved for sexual assault victims who finally felt brave enough to confront their attackers and seek justice for what happened. Is that not what it means? Now it means sexual harassment? No one knows because it's different for different people? How is this helpful?
In my culture and in my community, we're still working through that. There is no post-Me Too, right? We're still working through how do we have these tough conversations? How do we teach not just, women, but everyone about consent? What does consent look like? What does that look like in our community? What does that not look like, right? All those things that I think it's still very complicated. But I think it starts at the level of community, right? Of like, how do we have these conversations around consent?
Sydney, I saw your hand up.
So when the Me Too thing was unfolding, I was initially like, great, I love the idea of women being able to speak out. What's been really disappointing, I suppose, for me, post-Me Too, as we're calling it, is that, and especially as someone who's sort of on the right wing of politics, I think that a lot of the experiences of women on the right get a bit trivialized because there is a lot of politicizing of sexual assault. So when something legitimately happens on our side of the table and someone tries to speak up about it, there's almost an automatic disbelief. And I understand why. It's because of the believe all women type of stuff that came out of the Me Too movement that a lot of us were like, wait a minute, no, people do use these situations for gain. People do make things up. People do lie. But it is sad to watch it happen. It makes me sad that we're here.
Jordan?
I feel like there'll never be a post-Me Too because at the heart of it, Me Too is just a phrase. The spirit of what Me Too represented will always be relevant, and that is that you are empowering individual women to advocate for themselves and speak out when they feel like they're being wrong. Ideally, you're just trying to be the most transparent and self-accountable person you can be, and you need to hit all of those fronts if you want it to last on a cultural level.
How about beauty standards? We talked a little bit about this got brought up at the beginning. How does that tie into femininity?
Sorry, I'm very into this idea because I do think it is one of the larger intersections that just doesn't get very discussed, which is, like I was talking about before, barriers and friction are placed up around bodies. And the fatter I get, the older I get, the less people will listen to me, the less value I will have for society. So, I'm already starting out as a woman with no legs. If I had something on my face, I have my beauty. That's one of my privileges. I have my whiteness. That's one of my privileges. I used to have thinness, and now I'm getting fatter. Things are changing. And I think every single time that we talk about feminism, pretty privilege should be discussed because we have these ideas. If your skin tone is this, if your hair is this, if your body looks like that, it's about whether or not you are given an equal opportunity based on what you look like.
I saw it.
I think a lot of times the women that complain about beauty standards don't complain about them when they got privilege, when they were young and attractive and thin. So it's like, yeah, you're complaining when the privilege is gone, but privilege is invisible to those who have it. And women, it's a privilege. And men don't turn 18 and get looks that we get.
On one side of the beauty standards topic is the fact that people don't want to get old and wrinkly, so they try all kinds of things to stay looking young. I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to look nice. On the other side of the beauty standards topic, I think that people who put such emphasis on beauty standards and complain about it are just insecure about their own looks, so then they blame some arbitrary beauty standards for their insecurities. I disagree with Pearl that men don't turn 18 and get the looks that women get. I remember being a teenager and enjoying the cute guys in magazines or in movies and at school. Girls like to look at cute guys too. Guys have beauty standards as well, such as being really fit, having a lot of muscles, six-pack abs, height, and a lot of hair on their head. Guys have pressures on them to look nice too, and I'm tired of society acting like guys don't have to put effort into their appearance.
As a Black woman, one of the most integral parts of the beauty conversation has been colorism.
I don't know when people started saying intrical and pretending it's a word, but it's not a word. I think the word they're actually looking for is integral. The Urban Dictionary also noticed this problem and defines the made-up word intrical as a word that doesn't exist, usually used by dumbasses who really mean to use the word integral, which is a word. Integral means necessary to make a whole complete, essential, or fundamental.
I'm a dark-skinned Black woman, proud of it and proud of being myself. For the most part, I did not, why am I gonna cry about this? I did not grow up thinking I was beautiful because I was that. And I think in the Black space, we have these conversations, but I think I'm glad you're bringing it up, because I think feminists actually really should be part of the colorism topic, because colorism is not just shades within being Black, it's shades because they're, again, the beauty standard is the closer to whiteness you are, the more beautiful you are. I think it's something that if more people in different shades, particularly white women, because of knowing that standard, and we work together on that, then we have a lot, I think, something we can unify on, but also something that we can make strides in right now that I'm just not seeing. And it's only, again, that's why people feel like you have to be a Black feminist, because it's a topic that only really Black feminists are talking about, because it deals with being Black.
How do beauty standards make you feel, Morris?
I mean, kind of what you're saying, Antonia, as a Black Latina woman in my community, right? Like, I grew up and I was ugly, right? Like, that's what I was considered. I was not considered beautiful. Of feeling ugly, but also being told I was, right, had a lot to do with what is believed in my community, right?
It's very sad when Omera says that, of feeling ugly, but also being told I was. I feel bad for her because nobody should tell you that you're ugly. Omeris goes on to say it's what's believed in the Black Latino community. How about they stop telling their little girls that they're ugly? That would go a long way for helping someone have confidence in themselves. I've noticed a lot of the insecurities people say they have is blamed on white people, but then they say what Omeris said when they reveal that it was their own community that told them they were ugly. Antonia said whiteness was the beauty standard, but who told her that? Did the minority community think that, tell everyone that, and therefore brainwash themselves into thinking that? I think they're the hardest on themselves about how they look, and then they blame white people for it.
Colorism is one of them. And so to say, I'm gonna redefine beauty for myself, and to say, I own myself, and I get to decide what's beautiful, right? And I get to decide what I wanna wear, and how I wanna wear it. And I don't need to, right? It's almost a repelling, right? Like, I'm like, no, you know what? I am beautiful, I'm gonna do what I wanna do, and I'm gonna feel myself, because if no one else is gonna feel me, it's on me to feel me too.
I gotta say though, I did grow up being referred to as very beautiful for a woman with a disability. And that to me always fed this idea that disability doesn't mean beautiful. I am in some form of exceptionalism, which I then had to keep up with forever. So it's like, I got this thought as I started to age, like, you can have no legs, but you better not fucking get fat. And so this idea that, like, there are certain people who are beautiful and certain people who aren't, and that inherently holds value is, I think, you know, find it in yourself, yes, and.
I think that we've forgotten about inner beauty. There's inner beauty and outer beauty. Outer beauty is your physical appearance, including how you dress, how you do your hair, and basically what your style is. It's the superficial stuff of how a person looks. I think inner beauty is the beauty standard we should strive for. Inner beauty means having good character and being genuine. Inner beauty doesn't fade like physical beauty can, as long as you keep up your good character and genuineness. That doesn't mean you're perfect, but it does mean always striving to be the best you can be and not purposely doing things that degrade your own character. It means choosing not to be a shithead or have a shitty personality. It's something you can choose, and I think that reflects on your physical appearance too. I think that it shows on your face when you are full of resentment, hatred, and defensiveness. You're most likely always scowling, and then you get wrinkles early on in your life because you're angry and feeling gross inside all the time. It also shows on your face when you are full of gratitude, love, and genuineness. Usually you'll be glowing and smiling a lot, which is better for your health.
Jordan?
Beauty standards are toxic bullshit hierarchical nonsense. And I say that as someone who has spent over a year collectively of my life in eating disorder institutions because I have tried to put my body through hellish things to meet these beauty standards, which more often than not are not based in reality. They're typically trends, they're created to push things, they're extremely useful for marketing, but they don't serve anyone's health, they don't serve anyone's self-esteem. They only act to try and tell us that there's a allegedly right way to have a body, and if you don't occupy that space and have that body, then you're a piece of shit, which is absolute nonsense. And there are way too many women and men in the world who end up doing terrible things to themselves because they fall into this trap of thinking that you have to be this way. And if you aren't this way, then there's something inherently wrong at your core, which is nonsense.
When Jordan says they only act to try and tell us that there's allegedly a right way to have a body, and if you don't occupy that space and have that body, then you're a piece of shit, I think a lot of people misinterpret the purpose of the beauty standards. Just because a trend says it's more fashionable to have blonde hair, that doesn't mean you have to have blonde hair. It's just somebody's opinion that a lot of people agreed with. Just because a lot of people are doing something doesn't make it right. Just because a lot of people are doing something also doesn't make it wrong. All it means is that a lot of people are doing it. Just because a lot of people are doing it also doesn't make it law. Beauty standards are not a law, so you are not obligated to follow them if you don't want to. It's a choice. So I don't really understand why so many people think it's something they have to do.
You're perfect the way you are. That's literally the core of it. You are perfect the way you are. And anyone who tries to tell you otherwise is feeding into this industry and is just, they are not your friend or looking out for you.
I disagree with the phrase "you're perfect the way you are" because if you take it literally, it leaves you with the mentality that you don't have to improve yourself, which can lead you down a path of entitlement where you feel like you're better than everyone else because you're perfect. It leaves you closed off to criticism because you think you're perfect. I think a healthier way to look at beauty standards is that they exist because you have inherent worth as a human. You should also be humble enough to know that you don't know everything. And you're not perfect, but you can always improve. You can always learn. You don't have to try to constantly fit yourself into some alleged beauty standards because you already see your own inherent worth simply by being human.
Layla?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, beauty in the industry is exploitative, but also we have to remember a lot of the beauty standards are based around health, what's perceived as health, like symmetry, certain weights, things like that. So there is that side where we have to balance it, and I think we're seeing so much more representation, which I think is incredibly important.
Well, I just think that, like, if women really cared about beauty standards, like, the obesity rate wouldn't be what it is.
But what
Let's
about
try and
you?
maintain the beauty standards. I just think, like, some people are more attractive, some people are less attractive, and that's just, you know, where would I rate myself, 1 to 10?
Oh, we're not
you
rating,
know,
it's okay.
That's what I mean. Like, I just think, like, some people are more attractive.
So if you are overweight, you don't care about beauty standards,
Well,
is that right?
like, the point is that the beauty standard is thin, right?
Your standard?
But obesity comes from men and women, though.
Yeah, you're right. That's true. But I'm saying if women really wanted to fit the beauty standard, they would be thin.
I know, from my experience as well, is growing up, again, in a mostly white neighborhood but I was always comparing myself to literally other people who have a different body type, but I was considered other or to something because it didn't conform to that body type. When that same body type became popular with Kim Kardashian and the Kardashians, who are different, right, than me, let's just say, are different skin color, right? And there's a lot of animosity in a lot of Black communities of the fact that when it was on Black skin, it was an issue, but when it was on Kim Kardashian and the Kardashians, it was $1 billion business.
Yep. Our time together has almost come to an end. We sort of started talking about feminism, big picture. We're gonna try again. Is feminism dead?
I wish feminism was dead so I didn't have to hear about oppression every 9 seconds.
I think feminism is alive, and I'm thankful to be a participant and believer of it.
I would say, as far as the West goes, I think that feminism has been cannibalized by other movements like leftism, like transgenderism.
So I think feminism is very much alive and well. I think it takes different forms depending on who you're talking to, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. And as I've defined in the beginning, for me, I use it as a lens. So I don't think I'll ever stop having it in my arsenal, if you will. It makes for a good vice panel.
Does it though? What is a good vice panel? I've watched 2 of these vice panels and they've both been extremely terrible. Watching both of the vice panels made me feel like I was in middle school, or maybe even like a preschool, and people were just saying gibberish and screaming at each other. That's a good vice panel? I'd hate to see what a bad vice panel would be like.
Okay, we're done. I appreciate everybody taking the time. I know this is, it got a little heated at times, but thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Can I stand up now? Oh my God. Are we actually like, really done?
I love arguing.
I don't think I have sat this long in a little chair.
That was wild. I mean, drama.
Yeah, drama that you caused.
It was nerve-wracking.
Some of the people on the panel were entirely subsumed in misinformation.
So I've already discussed what the word misinformation actually means, but when Eli says misinformation to mean wrong information or lies, I need to point out the article of 20 transgender women who won national and international titles. So Eli's the one spreading misinformation that Leah Thomas is the only transgender woman to ever win a national title. Eli also continued to spread more misinformation by saying that there have been 0 transgender women who have won international titles.
I think that we women need to stick together and figure out what a woman is.
We were all loud, outspoken women.
Some people are soft.
I hate the idea that we're not supposed to be angry about it. It's okay to be angry about being oppressed.
It's also okay to be upset at people who keep saying that women are oppressed when we are not oppressed. Are you so oppressed yet you were invited to New York to be asked your opinion on a topic? Do we give a shit about oppressed people's opinions? Do we let oppressed people do anything?
I think that like what we're forgetting is a very important detail, which is just like human respect and dignity. It was like surprising to get tone policed on camera by a white woman.
I don't know why everything has to become about me being a white person, as if that somehow circumvents my opinions on issues.
Well, Sydney, it's 'cause you unfortunately sat on a panel with a bunch of people who were racists.
The personal is political, the political is personal.
We need to have more spaces where we have literal political ideologies of different backgrounds.
Feminism is always and has been a hate group.
Truer words have never been spoken.
Feminism isn't dead in America. I think feminism is doing its best.
Doing its best to what? Piss people off? Ruin entertainment? Annoy me? 'Cause these are the only things I see it doing.
I'm ready for a glass of wine.
Thanks for watching this pain in the ass video about feminism. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.